admire this guy, Stugotz, for a number of different reasons. He's already figured out his next career while partaking in one that's pretty hard to conquer that he's in the middle of. CJ McCollum, very good at basketball, might be better at broadcasting, which is saying something. I also like your thoughts.
I think he'd tell you he's better at basketball. I think he would tell you that.
Okay, we will find out together. He's a frequent guest and friend of Stupidity, but I wanted to start before we got to the silliness and fun with you. With the serious topic of the day in basketball, and I don't know how to reach out to Ja Morant with something that feels like compassion and humanity and love, and not just bash this young kid who is now on IG and deleting stuff that feels like goodbye messages. And I don't know what's going on with him mentally. I do know that the media climate and social media and fame in the day can contaminate and corrupt even those who aren't suffering with mental illness, just suffering from fame, from young famous person. So I thought you might help us walk through some of that as somebody who's become an adult in the league.
Yeah, I think I can't speak for our younger generation of players because obviously I'm 31 now and I got the tail end of social media. Twitter came out my junior year of college. There was no Uber, there was no Postmates, there was not a lot of the distractions that they're going through now. I remember communicating with people on Facebook and you know how that's kind of continued to evolve. But I think for our younger guys in the league, dealing with a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, and a lot of generational trauma that's being passed down from our parents and, you know, our ancestors. And I think there are obviously better ways we can all cope with some of the stress that we're dealing with. And I think for me, it's about encouraging people to build on healthy habits. For me, I have a therapist that I see. I believe in meditation. I believe in yoga. I believe in time alone. And the mental health side of it and the mental wellness side of sports in general is sometimes undervalued. And I think sometimes by athletes underappreciated. I think it's a sign for all of us, you know, as you continue to get older, as you continue to develop, there are ways that we can cope with the stresses that we're dealing with. And I point back to DeMar DeRozan, I point back to Kevin Love. Oftentimes people see us making a lot of money, which is great. And we're thankful for it and we're really happy, but they don't necessarily see the trauma and the behind the scenes that a lot of players and a lot of people in general are dealing with. And you may feel strong and look strong, but deep down, there's always issues that we're facing and things that we're going through. And what I always encourage young players to do is figure out healthy ways to cope with the things that you're going through, and don't be afraid to talk to professionals. Don't feel like you have to deal with things by yourself. And this isn't just about Ja Morant. This is about guys in general throughout the league who historically have been taught to be strong and to man up and to toughen up. And they aren't necessarily dealing with the problems head on the way that they should. And oftentimes we travel for a living. We're in different cities. We miss a lot of holidays. We miss a lot of important time with our family. And you're given a lot of money that you earn, right, early on. And you're not necessarily taught how to deal with it, how to manage it, how to manage the expectations that come with it. And I think for us, it's about heading in the right direction, teaching the proper education, surrounding not only financially what's at stake here, but how to kind of maneuver this society that is constantly watching you and expecting you to be perfect. And just to be honest, we're all not perfect. And if you look at a lot of older NBA players and athletes in general, they'll tell you they made lots of mistakes that were never captured on camera because of where we're at today.
CJ, there's not really room, okay, for a lot of this kind of nuance. So walk me through this as somebody who's the president of the NBA Players Association, the host of the CJ McCollum podcast. He's a point guard for the Pelicans, but he can really help people from this space, because beyond mental health and just transitioning to fame and money, beyond that, you've got a race crisis in America, and your league, Adam Silver has said, man, these guys seem unhappy. He's actually said out loud, there seems to be a lot of unhappy. And then, you know, people think Kyrie Irving is going crazy over there. And just walk me through the pressures, understanding what it is to have to be great, and I got to be better and more cutthroat than all these guys at shooting a basketball. I'm chasing Steph and Dame on just, I've got to be precise there. And also, oh, look, my arena's filled with the N-word still, and America's divided on racial issues, and Ja Morant is getting clubbed by the media because, what, he wants to look like a gangster on Instagram. Please, it's complicated subject matter, but you're more than equipped for the terrain.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I can walk you through my journey, right? You know, I get drafted at a Lehigh University. And I think the first time I really had like depression and anxiety and stress beyond what I could probably handle was when I got injured and dealing with injuries, fracturing my foot my senior year of college, my senior season evaporated right before my very eyes. And that's when I got involved in meditation. That's when I started doing yoga, hot yoga, practicing, breathing techniques to kind of figure out how to keep my heart rate low and deal with the stresses of the pressure of wanting to make it, to be able to provide for your family, feeling like you let yourself down, feeling like you let your family down. You fast forward to my rookie year, I break my foot again the last day of training camp. And dealing with injuries for me created a different level of stress that I wasn't accustomed to, because for the first time, the game is taken away from you, right? Like the thing that you've done your entire life, the thing that you've sacrificed for your entire life is taken away, and you have to figure out ways to cope with it. So that was my stress. And obviously you have the implications of things that you deal with in regards to your family, immediate and not so immediate family, the pressures of the financial stress that you kind of take on, as a professional athlete, because you're the breadwinner and everybody knows exactly how much money you make. So you have that type of pressure, not necessarily knowing how to deal with the financial rigors of having money, being the first person in your family, or the first generation millionaire, if you will. Like, it's very difficult, and there's no like book for how to maneuver that space. There's no book for how to hire. Like, you have to kind of figure things out on the fly, and you're going to make mistakes, but it's more so trying to learn from the mistakes that you make. And I think for players, I haven't even talked about the pressure of performance, right? The pressure of performance in this league is unlike anything it's ever been. And as a member of like ESPN, right? Like, you see how players are critiqued on a day-to-day basis. You see the slander, like a guy like Anthony Davis, who's arguably one of the best players ever. He's a top 75. Like, the slander he faces when he goes and averages 22 and 14, and people are like, well, he's got to do more. Like, he's got to do more. And it's like, well, his defensive net rating is plus 37. Like, how much more do you want him to do? Like, this two sides of the coin. And it's not like as players we go out there and try not to perform well. If people seen like our day-to-day schedule, what goes into our preparation, the time we get up, the treatment table stuff, the core, the stability stuff that you do, the shooting in practice, the shooting after practice, the film work, like, they wouldn't understand it because they've never had to actually live the life. And I think Brian talks about it all the time, like the man in the arena. Like, you're not in the arena, so you don't understand the pressure. And I'm not even talking about the pressure to perform, the pressure to understand that, like, the guy you're playing against, like for AD in this case, was Joker, right? Like, arguably the greatest big man ever, and he's still got years left. He's unstoppable, right? Like, the pressure of performance. You talked about the guard position. For a guy like Ja, he got to go through a road trip where he'll have to go against Dame, he'll have to go against Steph Curry, he'll have to go against Luka Doncic. Like, basketball is fun, and I love it, and they pay us a lot of money, but like, this sport is very difficult. It's very demanding, and it's a lot on your mental, physical, not to mention a road trip in which you'll go do, 5 and 7 or 5 and 8, finish with a back-to-back. It's a lot. And as the saying goes, too much is given, much is required. And we just have to figure out ways, as I said before, to better cope with the lifestyle of this sport, the attention that comes with this sport, the social media aspect of this sport, and how, I say it all the time, they hate on Jesus too. So no matter how perfect you are, right, as a basketball player, no matter how good you are, average 20, average 25, average 30, Steph was a unanimous MVP, and people still critique his game and talk about him. Michael Jordan, arguably one of the greatest ever, still talk about him. I'm watching people talk about how LeBron didn't do enough. And he's 38. In his 20th season, he played the entire game except for 20 seconds when he walked off the court with 4 seconds left in the first half. And they're talking about, like, why'd he pass the ball to Dennis Schroeder? It's like, what do you expect? Like, what do you want to see? Like, the guy has already done the unthinkable, right? Come back from 3-1. But it's always about what you didn't do, as opposed to people celebrating what you've accomplished. And I think that's the problem with this sport. At times, I think too many people have a voice. And as a journalist, like, you respect the ability to be able to talk and to speak up and to critique. But I think at times the wrong people are speaking, and they're not educated on the topics they're speaking on, and it's flooding the realm of our social media world.
Hey,
You didn't even get to the race element. You didn't, and you had plenty there to deal with stress. Now make it black guys performing for a divided America after George Floyd, after the bubble. But I mean, you've got stuff here.
I got, because CJ, one of the things that I think is also unique to some players, and you fit in this category, is the idea that nobody knew who I was, and then all of a sudden you are not just wealthy but also incredibly well known. I look at someone like Ja, for example. Like he wasn't the number one player in his high school class, and moving through the ranks or whatever, and came in kind of already as a built brand. He played at a small school. He was the number 2 pick, but was a relative unknown to like the mass public. So what's it like going from, I could walk down the street, no one knows who I am, to all of a sudden now everybody knows who I am?
It's different and it's difficult and it puts a strain on you. And I think I read an article about Steph Curry, right? And this is the extreme example of celebrity, the extreme example of his life will never be the same. He could never go to the movies again without renting out the entire movie theater. He can't walk into a Whole Foods grocery store and go shopping with his family. He probably has security just about everywhere he goes. He can't go on a normal walk unless he's in a gated community. He can't go on a walk with his dog or whatever the case may be and lead a normal life. He can't walk down, he can't walk Central Park when he's in New York with his family. Like, I can do those things and people still recognize me, but I can do those things. And I think for some of these guys, you become a celebrity in which the normal things you were able to do in college, you're no longer able to do. And this isn't me making excuses. Some of the things that we've seen and some of the things that have happened with our athletes are unacceptable, right? And you have to set a better example for not only the kids, but for our league, and to make sure that, as we've talked about the race issue of the stereotypes that we get as Black men in America, you can't live up to some of those stereotypes, and we have to do a better job. But I think for us, it's about providing the right resources around them, educating them and preparing them for what comes with stardom, for what comes with money. And, you grew up, I'm from Canton, Ohio, right? A very, very small city, a very, very small place, 70, 80,000 people now, steel mill, blue collar, known for the Football Hall of Fame, nothing else. We got players coming from cities. Herb Jones is on my team. He's from Greensboro, Alabama. They may have 4 stoplights in the entire city. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, this is him telling me, like, he grew up in the woods. He grew up in an environment where you didn't drive at night because there was people, pretending to be police officers, pulling over Black men and women and lynching them or killing them, things of that nature. Wow. Extreme things were happening where he grew up in Alabama. You talk about the race factor. So you become a professional athlete and you grow up in that paranoia, right, in a small city. Then you become an athlete, and now you don't really want to go out to eat on the road because unless you got security or a private room, it's difficult. Like the normal things that the average American citizen can do, an athlete can't. And they're judged for it, they're critiqued for it. And I'm not saying that all the things that we're doing are right, because it's obvious that that's not the case. But we have to figure out how to maneuver this society in which, to be honest, at times it's set up for you to fail. You can't go out to eat. You can't be in a club without somebody trying to take a picture of it. You can't be in a lounge. Like, it's always the constant threat of somebody trying to set you up to put you in a bad light because they want the clicks. They want the story. They love a story where you fail, and they don't really celebrate the stories in which you succeed. Like a LeBron James, who, and I'm referring to him because I'm from Canton, Ohio. This guy was named the chosen one at 15 years old. Have you ever seen someone live up to and surpass hype like this ever? Like, it never happens that way. And I think more stories of our players should be celebrated. The impact that we have as a global league with the faces of our league now continuing to transform. You got Joel Embiid, who learned how to play basketball at 16 from, as he jokes, watching white guys shoot on YouTube. Like, that's how he learned how to shoot. You have Nikola Jokic, you have Giannis, you have all these players who come from other countries, and they're able to make a name for themselves, make a living for themselves because of our sport. And I think we don't celebrate the collective enough on how successful we've been as a league and how successful our players have been. We only point to the bad stories.
I'm sorry about that.
He's so right about this, though. You are a bum. I don't care what you've overcome. I don't care that you're the top 1% of the top 1%. And holy shit, what the hell is Jokic? Where did he come from, and how can he do that? You're a bum, McCollum. What have you ever won?
Exactly. It's like people were questioning Melo for not winning a ring, and it's like, well, what about the success that he had, in his career?
But he's got to win a ring, CJ.
He's got to win a ring.
He's got to win one.
Come on,
CJ.
McCollum, grow up.
I mean, you know that, CJ. You got to win a ring, man.
You got to win a ring. You got to win a ring.
I
don't care that Steph Curry's over there.
And not in college or the international level. You have to win the NBA ring, too.
Correct.
It's like, goodness, like the expectation of success is different for an athlete. And it's like, if you look at the average citizen that works a 9 to 5, how successful are you at your job? Like, are you winning the equivalent of what a ring is in your job each year? Like, no, probably not. Like, if we're being honest. like I always say it, and I joke with one of my coaches, David Vanderpool. He used to always tell me, the world needs average people too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, CJ.
Wow.
That's the way it works.
Thank you for
The
my.
world needs
Thank you.
Well said,
The world
CJ.
needs
slogan.
Thank
It's
you.
a
Like
good
that's
slogan.
the
Thank you for my automatic rebuttal on social media.
The world needs
world
Cody
needs
Zellers. I mean, you're right.
No.
Hey, that guy was a
Why?
top 5 draft
Success
pick.
story.
Oh, hey,
Success story.
There are average NBA players in the league, but the average NBA player is better at their job than the average 9-to-5 worker
That is
because we're in the
correct.
top 1%.
Yeah, that's correct.
All of us here are.
CJ, you can't be on enough, sir. And I will leave the people with this since you brought it up in spirit and theory. The man in the arena from Theodore Roosevelt. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end of triumph of who, what happens, Stugotz.
And has a ring, I was going to say.
Okay, all right. See you later, CJ. Thank you for being on with us.
Send us the wine.
No problem.
Send us the wine,
Hey.
CJ.
Please, you got my number, right? And if you don't DM me, I'll make sure you get it. Ashley's on this call. We'll make sure you get the one. Make sure the whole studio. How many people in the studio?
We
We'll
got
make sure.
a lot of
Approximately
people.
27.
29
27.
on the- whenever
McCollum,
you-
39
McCollum
on
Heritage
Wednesdays.
91 is the wine. They love free shit. Thank you, CJ, for being on with us.
No problem. This is my only caveat.
What's
I'll
that?
send the wine, but you must at least drink it on the show or bring it on the show.
With you.
Say less.
With you. With you.
Drink on the job?
Drink on the
Who
show.
are you talking to?
Can I drink it while I
I
watch
mean-
the Steelers game?
Just pull it out. Just pull it out, hold it up, and
Say
CJ
less.
sent us
I
this.
got you.
Say less. I will
come on
pull it
down
out.
here. We'll enjoy your company. Get down here. Thank you, sir. Appreciate talking to you.
All right, blessings. You guys have a great one.
You
Thanks,
too,
CJ.
CJ.
Thank you.